Good afternoon. This is Munira, the CEO and founder of Kismet Ventures in Chicagoland. I am adding value to people by bringing and promoting. I say that I am exposing them, but exposing them because we are not promoting ourselves enough. So I think this is my catalyst, being a catalyst in this time where I'm helping other people also talk about themselves and their businesses. So I'm going to be a catalyst and promote you, and then add value to you by adding value to my business and promoting everybody else that hears you too. So my guest today is Cornelia Steinberg. Hi, Cornelia. Thank you for being my guest.
Hi, Munira. Thanks so much for having me. This is really exciting, and it comes at a really good time right now. I would say I'm almost in my, not darkest time, but lowest time. So this is wonderful that with that, I can add value to you and hopefully a lot of other people.
I'm glad. Thank you so much. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right, a little bit. Well, a little bit is I was born and raised in Germany. So that's, explains the funny accent that I have. So it's not something Midwestern.
That's not funny. I have the funny accent.
You have a funny. Well, let's see whose is funnier, right? And it's interesting because as a young child under 10 in Germany in the 60s, I had this dream that I was going to live in the US one day. And I told my parents about it, and they was like, why would you want to do that? Germany is nice, and, everything's fine here. And I didn't have an answer to that. I just knew that I needed to be in the US. So it took another, I don't know, that was maybe in 68, 69, and then in 91, actually in 84, I had an opportunity with my first husband to visit the US as a business trip and vacation. And when we arrived in New York on a hot, humid summer day in June of 1984, I just knew that, yes, I had arrived. Not that New York was going to be my city, but I just knew the land that, I was going to be here. So it took another 7 years till 91 till he got an opportunity for business so that we could move to the US. Now, we had traveled the previous years, and our dream city was San Diego. Of course, how can it not be, right?
Mine too.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So we had now, back in the 80s, there was not, the secret wasn't around. I hadn't come across Napoleon Hill or Wallace D. Wattles. I didn't know about the thinkers and authors. But what we did is very, very often we talked about how it would be to live in the States, and specifically in California. We envisioned what we would do on the weekend. We would envision what we would do for a business. I mean, he was in computers and programming and software and stuff like that. So we did what I just paid, a bunch of money for, to be in a Think and Grow Rich study, but we already did that. But of course, there's many, many levels of that. So then in 91, the tide turned, and he had an opportunity to get a job in the US, but it wasn't San Diego.
No.
It wasn't even Chicago. That was another option, but it wasn't that either.
Okay.
It was Nashua, New Hampshire.
Wow.
From all the places, not a place I wanted to be. But I guess innately, I saw the big picture, and I figured, you know what? It is a start. It is the US. Let's just see what unfolds. So while I was there, the first couple of years, I wasn't allowed to work because we had his working visa, but I couldn't work. So the only thing was I could be self-employed, but I wasn't quite sure what to do because my background was executive assistant and didn't quite know. And I didn't want to do that in a country where I didn't speak the language that well. So I was asking God to say, hey, what do you got for me? What do you got in your storage, in your bucket, something I could do? And one morning I woke up and I knew, you know what? I like to be a massage therapist. I like to help people. I like to work with my hands. And that was just down my alley. Health, fitness, all that kind of stuff. So I enrolled, I loved it, aced through the school, had my own practice. Him and I separated. And then in 98, I said, okay, this is it for New Hampshire. My dream was San Diego. I'm going. So I packed my bags and I moved to San Diego all by myself. I didn't know a soul in San Diego. I didn't have a job, didn't have a car, no place to live. And I arrived at the airport on a Thursday in July in San Diego with 3 bags, none of the above that I just mentioned, but a dream. And it took me 24 hours to get a car and an apartment. It took me 2 weeks to get a job as a hostess in beautiful little Italy, which it has grown. If you ever come to San Diego, it has grown so much the last 20 years. When I was there, they had like 3 restaurants. It was very Italian. I worked for an Italian family. It was home to me, because in Germany, my parents took me to Italy every summer vacation. And I love Italy. I love the language. I love just the lifestyle. So it was perfect for me. So now here I am in San Diego the last 20 years. And then the last 2 years, I've pretty much gone through the biggest challenge of my life. I got diagnosed with colon cancer in March of 2016. And I've been battling with it since. Now, the first 2 years weren't so bad. I mean, the first year I did chemo, I did all this, felt terrible, felt lousy. I mean, everything you hear about chemo, I had that, and it's all true. And no, chemo is not a cure at all. In my case, the cancer came back twice. So this is the third time, meaning it came back. Last year I had surgery. Thought it was all done because the surgeon said, yeah, didn't see anything, it's all gone. Did a routine scan 6 weeks, barely 2 months after the surgery. The original nodule that they found during the first surgery had come back. And that nodule is now 4 centimeters, used to be 1 centimeter last September. And in the last 3 weeks, I've been really going through a very, very, very tough time, because now it is obstructing or it's actually pushing against the pancreas, which has now caused pancreatitis, which caused me to not be able to keep food down all the time. So I've thrown up more the last 10 days than I think I've ever in my life. And that's not really great. I just came back getting some hydration again because I was dehydrated. I was in the ER on the weekend. And all this is changing or forming or getting me more into the person that I believe God really wanted me to be. It is very easy to pray to God and have faith when everything is going well, right?
Yes.
We all know that's like, oh, thank you for this wonderful day. Oh, thank you for this gift. Oh, thank you for this beautiful husband. Oh, thank you for the beautiful wife. It's so easy to be thankful. Think about being grateful when you're feeling at your lowest. Think about feeling grateful not for having the pain, but to have people in your life that carry you, that pray for you when you don't really have the words. A dear friend of mine, because the last couple of weeks I didn't really have the words to pray much. I was just too weak. I was sleeping a lot. And so she reached out to me a few days ago, and then she posted on a group that I'm in, if people could possibly send me a prayer. And Munira, that was the sweetest thing. That was such a gift. People, I mean, I could only read like 3, 4, maybe 5 prayers at a time, because people really had taken their time to really put words in their prayers, put feelings in their prayers. And I would only take just a few and really take them to heart. But when I was in the ER last weekend, I could feel being lifted by all those prayers. And I know that I'm healed. It's just my body has to catch up with it. And so, being a business owner, this is really, really hard. The last 2 years, I launched my business and I did what I could. The last 3 weeks, I don't say I closed my business, of course not, but it's a very low priority right now, because I'm very clear that I need to get strength back. I need to get well. Otherwise, there is no business, there is no Cornelia, there's nothing. So that's very tough as a business owners when you're the only one making the money. And now I sit here and say, well, I can't focus on my business right now. I need to focus on my health. I need to focus on a report that just came in that I did to match my particular tumor with particular medications that have a good success rate for me if I take them, that it will actually work. So I want to do some research. I don't want to just say, oh yeah, do that. I like my doctor, but I'm not somebody that just says, oh, we're doing chemo. Oh, yeah, okay. No, you need to be involved. You need to take charge. You need to question. You need to research. And I've learned all that to do. So that was a little bit about myself.
Well, wow. Thank you for sharing. So thank you for sharing the fact that you're going through this hard time. And thank you for being here, because not everybody would have done that. You are a very strong woman.
Thank you.
And you are an influencer in my book.
Thank you. That's, yeah.
So questions, lots of questions. So when you worked in the diner in Italy, because I'm going to progress, when did you decide that this was enough and I'm going to become a business owner? Did you do something else in between?
My background, so when I moved to San Diego for the first year, I was just a hostess. And then, because I wanted to get settled in. Before that, I had my own practice massage, and I also ran a chiropractor's office on the East Coast. So when I came here, I just wanted to really settle and just take a break and figure out, what do I want to do? And I slipped into the car business. It was not something I would have ever thought of doing, but coincidentally, I got introduced and I made a career out of it. I held many positions over the last 17 years. I was a finance manager, sales assistant. I trained the salespeople, which I've always loved. I was a GM, general manager, DMV clerk. I mean, I held many, many positions and I learned a lot. So when I got diagnosed with colon cancer, it's an excellent question, because it's typically a major event in our life that, makes us or prompts us to just say, you know what, let's reevaluate. Life is short. So when I got diagnosed, I went, of course, on medical leave first. I didn't think about my job at all. I was just glad at that point to be out. I had state disability or medical leave, whatever. So I didn't have to worry at that point about, oh my God, I don't have any money. So that was very fortunate here in California. So I could just concentrate on get through the chemo and regain my strength. When the year of medical leave was up or was coming to an end, now a year before I was diagnosed, I have to also say, I joined the John Maxwell team. And that was one of the best decisions in my life. And I really wanted to become, because I like training people. I've always liked to teach people. I love to speak, as you couldn't tell. And coaching, I hadn't thought about it. I didn't really know what that was. I had met some life coaches, but I had no clue what they were doing, because it's like, yeah, okay, I don't know. So I was studying a lot that first year before the diagnosis, and I knew this is something that eventually I want to transfer to and move into. Then the kind of diagnosis, and with chemo, it was very hard, but it was predictable too. So they were always out of every 3 weeks. I had a good week, 10 days where I could study and get better. And I really liked the coaching part. I looked into it and like, oh my God, that is so me. I like this. So I got familiar with all that. And then when the year was up, the medical leave, I knew, okay, you know what? I'm going back to my company and I want to offer them, because we have 1,100 employees in no training. If I could somehow get a training position and training coaching, and even if it's maybe less day and even less money, that was fine. But then I can build my business on the side. So I went in to talk to the president of the company, and I kind of did my proposal. And he said, and I know he's between the owner and, himself, kind of, trying to please everybody. So he couldn't really give me what I was looking for. But then he came up with a different idea, which was fine as well. And I've been doing that once a month to train the new hire car salespeople. And we have one of the books, because as a John Maxwell team member, I'm certified to teach certain books. And one of them is Everybody Communicates, Few Connect.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite books. And it's so perfect for the car business. I mean, for any retail business, any customer service related business. So I made, my own training out of it. And so I go in once a month and they have me train the new hires. And also in the discussion, when I talked to the president, when he said, well, I'm sure you don't want to come back. They had given my job, that was kind of eliminated, but they had something similar. And I said, after I looked for a year, kind of death in the eye, not really knowing what's going to happen, I really need to do what makes my heart sing. And that is being a coach and a speaker and a trainer. He understood. He looked at me. He understood perfectly. And that's when he said, okay, then I have, this proposal for you. And so that's what I've been doing. So the decision really was made that I had outgrown the position that I was in. I felt like a plant that wasn't a planter, that was too small. And that there's something way bigger that is there for me, where I can influence a lot more people, touch more people, and just maybe inspire more people that they in turn also can do what makes their heart sing. And if everybody would do that, Munira, wouldn't you think we would have a much better world?
You hit the nail right on the head, because yes, so two things. One thing that you have touched on is take care of yourself. As women, and as women of culture, or, but just women, we are nurturers. We don't take care of ourselves.
Right.
Take care of everybody else around us, and we forget that we matter.
Yeah.
Just like you said, if there is no Cornelia, there's going to be no practice, no teaching, no coaching. And same way, I think this message is very powerful, because we forget as women that we have to come first. It's funny that you said that, because this past Saturday I went to a workshop and I was talking to this gentleman, and he goes, Munira, that's what he did to my head. He goes, Munira, he goes, when you are on a plane, what do they tell you? And he goes, put the mask on yourself first.
Yep.
Worrying about your neighbors. And
Exactly.
That's a very good analogy as well.
Yeah.
We still tend to forget who we are and what our purpose is. And I think in looking for our purpose, we forget who we are.
Yes.
So this is why I've taken it upon myself, that I am looking for what I am supposed to do next. But if I'm exposing and promoting people and finding their value and exposing their value to the world, maybe something good out of that is going to come for me. So
I think it's going to be a given, Munira. It's not a maybe, it's a given.
So, and then the other thing you said was, take care of yourself. And the other thing you said is do what makes you happy, right? My business is founded on, when I was in corporate America and I had worked in a county and then I worked in corporate America, everybody would tell me, think outside the box, But that phrase really resonated with me, because we think and we could be thinking all our lives, but we never do anything about it. So my catchphrase is, thinking outside the box is redundant. Let me get you out.
I love that. Exactly.
Because, that happened because I was going through personal stuff, and I would call up my cousin and I would talk to her, and she goes, for the past year, you're telling me the same thing. So, either blank or get off the pot. That's
exactly. Yep. Yeah.
And I didn't realize what she had said, but that was very profound. And I said, yeah, stop thinking about it. Just go ahead and do it. And many, many, many people are in positions where they're not happy. I was in corporate America and I hated going to job. It was a prestigious company.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I went there to work, I was angry. I was not myself.
I understand. Yeah.
So my daughter had called me one time and she goes, "Why don't you just quit?" Well,
God.
yeah, but the thing is, I understand why people stay there, because you are worried about where your next paycheck is going to come from.
Right.
In your case, you had disability, but not everybody else can fall back on whatever. They need something.
Exactly.
So, as it happened, they let me go because the offering that I was hired for was no longer being offered. So they said it's going to be a mutual thing, and then we're just going to cut the umbilical cord here. And I said, okay. So I was good. But then the thing is that many people dream, but don't make that dream come true, right? And so you knew what you wanted, and because you had time or whatever, you had studied and you had figured out this is what you wanted, it allowed you to take the next step. So for people who are in that rut where this is what my heart wants me to do, but my brain is telling me I have to survive, what do you tell them? How did you make the decision and say, no, I'm going to call it quits?
Follow my heart. And I would say, looking back, because I did it when I left Germany, even though I left it with another person, which is a little bit easier than by yourself, but I left New Hampshire by myself. And all I can say is faith, knowing that this is my intuition. This is something inside me that it's my heart. I call it following my heart. And then you have to have the faith that it'll work out okay. And what is faith? Faith is a belief in the unseen. That's why it's so hard to grasp. And when I moved from New Hampshire, I remember being on the airplane and being happy and being scared. And, I left 2 husbands too. And I remember each time, the first night when I was in my own place, I was relieved and I was scared. And there's nothing wrong with being scared, but you got to acknowledge it and then go in that space where this is what you wanted to do and that's the right thing to do. If you do something wrong, then I don't know how that works. But in my case, it seemed to have always been the right thing to do. And I've always, and maybe this is the way my grandma raised me. My parents raised me too, but I spent the first 6 years with my grandparents from Monday through Friday, that God is my friend and Jesus is there for me if I need him. So I was not, fortunately, brought up in a religion where you had to fear God and he would punish you. So to me, that was always like, no, I pray and I follow my intuition and everything will be okay. So I think that was my fortunate that I had that. So when I arrived here in San Diego and being like, oh my God, this is it. Here I am. And when you read Napoleon Hill, Thinking You're Rich, in one of the chapters, and I forgot which, might have been Faith, I forgot which one, but where he talks about where I forget who it was, they go into a country and they burn the ships and kind of telling the crew that, there is no plan B and we're burning the ships because that means we got to win this battle. And I found that when you don't have a plan B, your faith gets stronger. There is something set free inside you that gives you a power that things will align for you. And I can't really describe it. I'm not a scientist. I just know from my own experience how it has worked in my life. So if somebody is at the point where the heart says, open a hair salon, but the head says, oh my God, there are already a gazillion out there. What makes you think that you're better than that? Don't listen to that voice. My best advice is find a really, really good coach that can help you with, we call it the gremlins, to clear out those voices. Or if you want to be a lawyer, the criminal voice can say, "What, you want to be a lawyer? There's a gazillion already out there, and they're all crooks anyway." But if that's your heart's desire, who's going to say you could be the best attorney, even though there are a gazillion others, but everybody is so unique. So don't let that voice, wrap you up. Listen to the heart voice, because that is the true voice. That's what I've experienced. So I would say, do what you can. Take action. Make a plan. I mean, it's not wise to say just quit and go. I mean, some people can do that, but it really depends. What is your financial situation? You might have to really suck it up and have a 3-year plan where you put money away, or, it might be like that. It might not be as easy, but if you have something that makes your heart sing, all I can say is do it and do all that you can to make it happen.
So I know what you're saying, but I think to add to your whatever you say, to your point, is the fact that, when you are aware that I am in a rut, or I'm in a place where I'm not me anymore and I'm changing, and then that little voice is talking to you, then when you are aware, the fact that you are now intentional about, okay, I am aware and now I need to get out and I have to figure out. I think once you marry the two, the awareness and the intentionality, then roads begin to open.
I agree. Yeah. And sometimes, it doesn't have to be as drastic as, being in corporate and now you want to open a bakery. So it doesn't have to be as drastic. Sometimes you might not be happy in what you're doing. So if let's say if somebody just knows, it's not me anymore, I lost my soul, right? I would say journal for a while and find out what happened to your soul. Where did you lose it? Because at some point you took that job. And go back to the beginning. Now, if you took it because of prestige or something.
Did I lose you?
It's unstable right now.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. So I would go first to the beginning. How did you get in that job?
True.
If it's something that you really, really wanted, then I would question, say, what happened along the way that you changed? And sometimes it might be that like in my case, I had just outgrown my job. I was happy for a long time because I had a wonderful boss who gave me a lot of authority, and I could kind of come and go as I went. I had a little, child at the time, so I was very fortunate always. But I had done a lot of things, and I had come to a point, and that boss unfortunately retired. So you look at things. What is it that causes you to not be yourself anymore? That would be the first step. If you are in a job that you hate, don't like, and you really have a desire. My stepdaughter, she has a pretty good job, but it's not her career. But she just told me a few weeks ago that she would really, really want to open a juice bar, smoothie, health food store in a little town. She lives in a little town, and there is nothing like that. And tourists are coming in, especially in the summertime. And so that's a desire that she just kind of developed for the last few months. So, if you are in a position where all of a sudden you have an idea, then I would say nurture that idea. Take action on it. Find out what it would take to get that idea. Do a market analysis. I mean, she's done some of that already. And so, you can't just say, oh, I have a great idea. I'm going to quit and out I am. It's a process. And really,
it's so funny that you say that, and I'm pretty excited because we are reading the chapter on specialized knowledge.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And this lady, she takes her idea and she does a lot of research, and then she markets that idea, and then she does the same thing for her son who hasn't been able to find a good employment. So he they write what his desires are, what kind of a job he wants, what his opportunities are, what his expectations are, what his past experiences are, his schooling. So they write the whole history, and it's a plan. And she takes and they write this, and then he also talks about the position that he wants, the child wants, and then they go to an employer, and he's able to give that to the employer and say, this is what I am wanting, and this is what I'm worth. So he wrote his own pay, and he didn't start at the low level, but he started up, because in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill says that, if you are not looking above, then you stay stagnant in that same position for years and years.
Yes.
And I come from a pharmacy background, and I worked in lots of hospitals as a consultant too. And I would see people who were doing the same thing for years and years. And I'm like, how do you do this?
Exactly. Yep.
I understand if you do the same thing in different hospitals, like if you're a consultant and you're meeting new people, acquiring new software skills or anything else, that's different. But in the same position, doing the same thing, I wouldn't be able to do that. That's changed to a desk.
No. And I do teach DISC, that's the behavioral style profiles.
Yes.
And that would be a C personality. They kind of like the same thing, very predictable. I'm an I, so I'm very outgoing, people oriented, and I get bored easily. So yeah, I need, different things, even though I did the same job in the car business, but I held different position, and it was always different. I could not do that. And I admire people that can, and we need those people that, do the same thing inside, day in and day out. So it's admirable. But we're all different, and that's important too. All different, and we're all unique, and we have something to give to the world. And I think to be able to know that, and you were touching on that earlier, we as women, we give so much that sometimes we forget that we are unique, that we have something to give, but to also inspire others to be the best they can be, and to allow ourselves to be the best that we can be, and to be that we were meant to be.
It is true. That is so true, because like you said, we forget who we are, and we forget we forget all that.
Yeah.
So my takeaway from your interview is, one, put yourself first and value yourself.
Value yourself. Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you need to get out, then do your research, have a plan, and take the next step.
Yeah. Take action on your thoughts. So if you have a thought, don't just think inside the box, or not even outside the box. Like you said, you have to get out of the box, meaning, thoughts are things. So if you have a thought, that's great. But the thought alone is not going to happen. You have to take actions too.
You're right. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for sharing your story. And I hope and I pray that you will find your cure. I know you're on your way already, but you will find your cure, and you will be better because of that.
I am. I feel I am healed, and the body will follow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Munira, for having me.